Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy options for game week 14. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. My game week didn't go too well, but I can take the positive of the fact that my captain delivered again.
Ah,
That was Mohamed Salah. So I got 13 in a row. And I feel like every time I mention it, I'm going to jinx it, but they just keep on coming. So
no,
yeah,
it was,
here we go.
yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it before on this, the great Aguero Salah home rotation has come to an end. So it was a case of which away side to go for. And you went for Salah, I went for Aguero. Aguero was my second captaincy blank of the season. I think getting 11 successes I feel pretty happy about. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a good place to be in.
we flipped the coin. Yours
Yeah,
landed
exactly.
Salah side up, mine sadly on the bottom. Speaking of Aguero, well, he let me down last week. Do we think he can let those that favour him for the armband down again? Now, he's got a home fixture at Bournemouth. Now, he's better at home than away. So, yeah, what do we think? City assets, Aguero, Sterling, Sané, Silva, loads of them. Loads of options to captaincy. Is Aguero still the best, or should we be looking elsewhere for City options?
Yeah, I think it's quite funny in that I really didn't want to captain Aguero last week because what we'd seen with the numbers was that he's literally half the money is away from home. And then the funny thing is, I wasn't even thinking about him really last week, and then this week, I can't look past him based off who's in my team at the moment. I mean, I think really it's between Aguero and Sterling if we're objectively looking for the best captaincy. But of course, obviously, Aguero's ownership's still a lot higher. So I think Aguero is probably. I'd be surprised if Aguero isn't the most popular captain overall. Um, yeah, Aguero is much better at home. I mean, that's the thing. When we looked at the numbers last week, it's like 38 shots at home. No one's had more than that. 29 of them are in the box. No one's had more than that. 12 on target. No one's had more than that in home games. And then it's Bournemouth, whose defence statistically hasn't been that bad this year, but they're still not really keeping clean sheets. They're still kind of the same. There's nothing different about Bournemouth that makes me sort of worried about Man City at home, because Man City at home are just devastating this year. If we're trying to differentiate between Aguero and Sterling, it's tricky because they do different things. So Sterling's more of a creator, so he's had 10 chances created in the last 4 game weeks. Aguero only 6, but then Aguero is just miles ahead for shots on the season as a whole. He's ahead for shots in the box and shots on target as well over Sterling. But then flipping it around again, Sterling's had 43 touches in the penalty box in the last 4 game weeks, and Aguero's only had 27. So there's kind of I would really hate to have them both, because I wouldn't really know who to go for. But again, it's Man City at home against Bournemouth, so does it really matter if I've got both? You're probably going to be all right. One particular stat that has scared the life out of me, because I don't own Sterling, is that he's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 3 home matches against Bournemouth. So I
Oh,
reckon if I
okay.
did have Sterling, I'd probably captain him. But it'd be a tough call.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was looking. I mean, first off, I have to look at City against Bournemouth just as a fixture. Do we go for a City option above any of the others? And I was looking at last 4 game weeks, goal attempts conceded. At the top is Burnley. They're conceding shots for fun. But in second, joint second actually with Brighton is Bournemouth. So Bournemouth are just below Burnley in terms of conceding shots. So that makes me think it has to be a City asset for me. If you've got Sterling and not Aguero, captain Sterling. If you've got Aguero, you haven't got Sterling, captain Aguero. I think that's the way of looking at it. But just another thing, really, I mean, I don't own Sterling. That's probably why I've been plummeting down the ranks for a little bit. But Sterling, if you look at the form, I do like this little thing on the FPL website. When you click on form, it gives you kind of the match average over the last month of fixtures. And Sterling's incredible, 11.3 points a game he is averaging over the last month or so. And Aguero is just 6. Okay, so you've got to look at the away fixtures there as well, so you've got to take that into account. But that just shows the broad spread of points, bonus, assists and goals that Sterling is getting. And when they're hammering teams 4 or 5-0, Sterling is going to get those bonus and he is going to be involved in so many of those goals as well. Sané is another differential option there I think people should consider. Same with David Silva, although David Silva, I think his ceiling is probably about 9 points, it seems to be. He can't quite get beyond that. But Sané, he's averaging 8.5 over the last month fixture, so that's That's really good as well. So I think that's the key thing I'm looking at really. It's a City asset this week. However, now let's pretend Eden Hazard hasn't got a little yellow flag on him, but his home game against Fulham. Now he looks a very enticing option as well. But he does have that yellow flag, and Fulham under new management as well. What do you think about Hazard?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of ignoring the flag for now because I think he sounds positive. He sounds optimistic in the words that he's put out since he got a little bit of a knock against Spurs. So yeah, I'm not worried about that. I was looking at him. I've been looking at this fixture for ages. When I was thinking about getting Barkley about 3 game weeks ago, I didn't get him in the end. But one of the reasons why I nearly got him was because I really liked the look of this fixture. But obviously, yeah, the landscape has changed and Ranieri's in now. I don't think that, but I honestly don't think that Fulham they're not gonna make strides in defence in the next 7 days. I mean, they had 2 weeks effectively with Ranieri over the international break, and they still conceded 2 goals at home to Southampton. Great little stat. Southampton had averaged 0.66 goals per away game this year, and they've left Craven Cottage with 2. They've gone way above their average for away goals. Yeah. So that just tells you there's still loads of problems with Fulham's defence. And maybe Ranieri will solve it, maybe he won't. But I wouldn't have exactly said that Ranieri is one of these managers with a reputation for doing that. Obviously, Leicester were very good defensively towards the end of their campaign where they won the league. But largely, they steamed ahead at the beginning of the season by just absolutely going through teams and conceding goals here and there. He's more of a motivator than he's a defensive organiser. So I think Chelsea can win this comfortably. So yeah, Hazard's definitely been in consideration for me. I mean, obviously, last couple of weeks he's kind of been a bit not at his best. I mean, the Spurs game, I think it's hard to read too much into it because I think Chelsea just didn't really get going in a different area to the pitch to where Hazard has been operating. So Jorginho couldn't really operate as that's what Sarri was saying because of the way that Spurs lined up. And Spurs are always very unpredictable. You never know what formation they're going to play, and that's what Sarri said was the problem. I don't really think we have that with Fulham. I can't see Fulham tactically outclassing Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So I think that Hazard will have the opportunity to kind of play his game. So he's definitely a candidate.
I have a little concern with Hazard, and that is since he came back from injury, so looking at game weeks 11, 12 and 13. So that involves a home games against Crystal Palace and Everton. So you would expect him to do far better against those sides. So I compared that with game weeks 2 to 9, which is so he missed most of the first game, came on as a sub. So 2 to 9 is when he had that big chunk there. So I came there. His goal attempts have halved during those recent few games, really, and that concerns me as well. He's creating the same number of chances. Okay, so that feels a bit better. What I found interesting though is he was taking corners. He was taking on average 3 a game for those game weeks 2 to 9. That's completely dropped off. He's basically I think he's had 1 over the last 3 games. So that obviously then, when you've got good players in the sides, you've got players like big players like David Luiz, but you've also got Giroud, Morata. You've got these kind of strikers that should be benefiting from headers, from corners. Hazard's not there to take advantage. There's a big thing that I did notice as well. I looked at game weeks 2 and 9. Guess what? Giroud played most of those. And in fact 4 of those fixtures he played more than 60 minutes, so he had significant minutes in a big chunk of those games. Game weeks 11 to 13, when Hazard's stats have dropped off, particularly in shots, Giroud has played just 14 minutes across those 3 games. So what I'm interested to see is whether Giroud is starting or not. If we get any inkling that it's Giroud over Morata, then Hazard, I think, becomes a contender for the captaincy. If it's Morata again, the evidence of this season shows that he's just not the man as well. I mean, looking at some other options, really. So if we're not keen on... if people aren't keen on City, they need their
not keen on Man City.
So if they want to look away, so we've got to give some other options as well. So Man City, we think, are the best ones. Hazard possibly as well. Now, Manchester United have a great fixture away to Southampton, who, let's be fair to them, are now the worst side. So we've had Cardiff, Fulham, and now Southampton have taken the mantle of being the league's worst side. Fulham put 4 past them. That's how bad they are. What do we think about Martial? Because he looks to be probably the key asset for Manchester United if you're thinking of slinging the armband over that way.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, if you are going to look at the other side of Manchester, then yeah, I reckon he's probably your best bet. But doing a little bit of digging today just for some scout notes, I found something that could be potentially interesting. Obviously, he had 6 goals in 5 games going into game week 13, and then in sort of classic FPL. Storyline is that when everybody jumps on him, I think something like 280,000 people signed it for game week 13. That's when he finally blanks. It was actually the lowest number of shots he'd had in a game since game week 9, and game week 9 was the last time that Lukaku started.
Yeah.
And then Lukaku's obviously started this one. So now that Lukaku's back in the side, that tells me that when Lukaku wasn't playing, he was having more opportunities to be the guy to have the shots on goal. Now Lukaku's back, is he going to kind of revert to being more of a winger rather than being, the spearhead for that front line, which is entirely probable. But at the same time, it's Southampton, who, as you just explained there, are absolutely terrible. So, I think if you've got Martial, you'd be patient with him. If Man City weren't playing Bournemouth, then absolutely, I'd say, probably consider him for the captaincy. But it's just, it's hard to really say, I'll go for it.
Yeah.
In a week like this.
We've got to mention him. So many people have brought him in.
Yeah,
I think also people are starting to, because they're so fickle. The people who get in Manchester United players, it's like, oh, Liverpool must get one, and then they get them in their hundreds of thousands, and then as soon as they blank, it's like, oh, dump them. I believe 23,000 people have already dumped Martial this week.
We had it with Lingard last year, did we? Where he went on a similar run, didn't he? And then when everybody got him, that's
what you buy into. With a Manchester United player, they're so popular around the world. FPL is such a popular game globally. As soon as they do anything, people are just all over them, and as soon as they don't, they're just ready to ditch. So fickle. What do we think of Liverpool? A home game against Everton. That's a derby, tough to call. Everton looking good defensively. Do we think Salah, Mane, are options for the captaincy this week?
It's tough. Yeah, I think you've made the point already that because it's a derby game, I think it is tough to call. And we generally, whenever there's a big game, we said at the start of the season, well, maybe we shouldn't look away from them. But I think what you find in these big games is that the big players tend to be tend to be marked in a more specific way. So I've got no stats to back this up, but I just feel like in these big games, the people who score the goals are people you just don't expect to score them.
This is a Wijnaldum brace game, isn't it? James
absolutely.
Milner.
Yeah, it'll finish like 2-2, and it'll be like a Joe Gomez own goal. And then so like Idrissa Gueye will score like a 30-yard screamer. Jagielka will go and score a 30-yard screamer in front of the Kop, as he's done before. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I just feel like the big games. I'm talking about any team. I'm talking Man U, Man City, Arsenal v Spurs. Arsenal v Man United, Chelsea v Arsenal, that sort of thing. I just feel like in those games, that's when it's more unpredictable. And so then, even though Liverpool are at home and they normally do quite well there, and because there's still a case for it, because Liverpool do quite well at home. They're averaging around 3 goals per home game if you take Man City at home out of the equation, which I think you should, because it's not really a test of what they're going to get every week at Anfield. And Everton's defence away from home isn't great either. But it's just anything can happen in a Merseyside derby. So I wouldn't. No. So I don't have Mane, so I don't think his underlying statistics are great. And whenever he pops up, it seems to be out of nothing from a data point of view. So I see very little to back up a Mane captaincy most weeks.
Yeah, one of the things. I think you have to compare Salah and Mane against the alternatives. Of course, Man City options are those alternatives there. And I was looking at shots at home. So this is across all home matches. And Aguero's top of the pile there, as you mentioned before. He's great at home, 38 shots there. And Salah's down at 24. He's behind Mitrovic and Jimenez of Wolves. So that's what I'm looking at really. I think if you've got Salah and Aguero with home fixtures, you own both. You've got to go for Aguero, I think, just on form, especially because of the opposition he's against. So once again, Salah an option, but I don't think he's going to cut it this week. Looking at some of the other fixtures as well, are there any other kind of differential options or others? I was looking at the Arsenal Spurs one. That looks tough to call, but there's some potential big scorers in that match.
Yeah, just been looking at on the site today that Spurs look like they're back. It's the first game they had with Son, Eriksen, Ali and Kane starting all in the same game this season. And while that probably won't happen every week, I would be pretty confident that Ali and Eriksen are going to play with Kane this week. And Kane has quite a good scoring record against Arsenal. And Kane is back to the stage where he's actually he's posting a shot count that we're a bit more used to with him. So in the first sort of 10, 11 10 game weeks of this season, he was averaging 2.9 shots per game. And then in the last 3 game weeks, he's been averaging 5.3, which is and it's over 3 games rather than, which is still, it's not as big a sample size as I would like, but it's still, I think it's enough to suggest that Kane is back to the form we'd like to see him in, and he does love scoring against Arsenal. So I think because the thing is, it comes down to who's in. I mean, if you've got Kane, you probably haven't got Aguero. Is my thought, unless you've just got a team full of Genduzis, but. If you've got Kane, then you're spending 12.3, I think it is, on him now. Then you've got to think about captaining him in a game where, because Arsenal defense is terrible. He's in form, and he loves scoring against Arsenal. So if you've got Kane, he's got to be part of the conversation for your decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're not talking about game week 15 yet, but. Game week 15 against Southampton, I think we'll be talking about Kane much more.
Absolutely,
A little footnote this week as well. Any other differentials worth mentioning? I mean, it's going to have to be one hell of a differential to trump the City lads.
No, I think this week I'm going to say no. I'm going to say there's no other differentials.
That's good. I like that.
But the only other thing, just to say, I think because I think some people might have just picked up on this. A lot of people have been getting worried about Aguero. I just should have mentioned it earlier, but because obviously he's probably going to play. In the Champions League this week because Jesus isn't in the travelling squad and he's not allegedly fit, and everyone's like, well, maybe he won't start against Bournemouth. Well, maybe Jesus won't be fit for Bournemouth either, so he's probably going to have to play both. Yeah. So that's just one of a little sort of bit on Aguero, is that the fact that Jesus is injured doesn't mean he's not going to play against Bournemouth. We might know more later in the week if we hear from Pep that Jesus is fit on Friday, then it maybe completely turns the whole thing on its head. If people don't have Sterling, for example, but for now, I'd be confident of Aguero. I mean,
Sterling is an option as well to be played as a striker in that kind of false nine forwards. It's whatever in the kind of fluid attack as well. Another point.
He can miss Bournemouth as well.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say one other point we have to mention as well is the threat of rotation is very real. This isn't us scaremongering. As soon as the European matches are out of the way, we've got game week 14, which we've been discussing. Then we've got game week 15 a few days later, and game week 16 a few days later. I'd be gobsmacked if some of the players that we've mentioned will play every one of those 4 matches within basically a week and a half. I think we have to prepare ourselves. The likes of Aguero, Sterling, Salah, Kane. Maybe not Kane. Okay, maybe he's immune to this. Yeah. But pretty much everyone else is going to miss at least a game over that time, or have their minutes severely cut. And it's a guessing game. I think you just got to go with who you think that best player is, and make sure you got a good vice captain each week, and including game week 14. It's probably going to be a City person as well. But don't be surprised if when you captain Aguero he's not on the team sheet or Sterling exactly. As well. But
the other thing with Sterling was that he's missed 2 games this year that they were rotations, they weren't injuries, and they were home games against teams who Man City are expected to steamroll, and that was Huddersfield game week 2, and Burnley I think was game week 9. So already we're thinking, Jesus, you've mentioned Sterling could start in the centre forward role in the Champions League. This could be exactly the game that Pep goes, I don't need him for this.
Exactly, and we've got Mahrez as well, underused. I mean, any other team apart from City, Mahrez would just be in the team every week. But,
some people pay a lot of money for him.
There's definitely so I don't want to put the fear of God in people about this. Feel happy and optimistic with whoever you choose, and good luck with your captaincy decisions. And David, good luck with your captaincy decision too.
Cheers, and you.